Hi everyone, it's Joanne Levy here, President of Sassoon Yehuda Sephardi Synagogue. So this month is November and we have been commemorating and remembering those Jews who were expelled from Arab lands. This is really important. This is commemorated worldwide. Israel set the date in November. It's the 30th of November. And you'll see a lot, especially coming from America, of Sephardi communities recognizing those Jews who were forced to leave their homes. And I'm really proud that we as a community are doing this now. So last Shabbat, we had a kiddush. I gave some insights and stories. And I also talked about us as a community. And I had so many people who wanted to hear it again and who had missed out. So that's why I'm uploading this now. So I will be sharing my speech. But I also wanted to talk about some of the things that I talked about on Shabbat. And one of the things is that it's really important for us as a community, and especially for me, to make sure that our community is thriving and vibrant. We are important. We are amazing. We are diverse, and I think what's important is that people need to understand that not all Jews come from Eastern Europe. And, I had a lot of people coming up to me on Shabbat going, people don't realize that, Jews came from India and Jews come from here and I'm like, I know. So both my parents and my in-laws are from Egypt, and we have a diverse, incredible membership at our synagogue. And keeping in mind, there are only 2 Sephardi synagogues in Melbourne. There's us and there's the Rambam. And it's really important that we are represented within the Melbourne Jewish community. It's actually the same in Sydney. There are 2 Sephardi communities. We are a minority within a minority. It's really important that we let people know that we are who we are, that people see who we are, because we are different. The way that we pray, our tunes, our foods, everything is different. But that's also great, and it's really, really important. So so one of the things that I am looking at, so 2 things that I talked about was that we're looking at trying to get some beautiful glass cabinets in the synagogue, because we have some beautiful pieces that have been donated to us that are part of our synagogue. They're locked away at the moment because they're too precious to put out, and we need to make sure that they're kept safe. So we're looking to we're fundraising to get some money to build some very strong, lockable glass cabinets to display these beautiful pieces, and there'll also be lights in them, which will be amazing. And the other thing is that we are looking to get some grants to interview people within our community and have these stories recorded. They will be available on our YouTube channel, and they'll be part of education within the Melbourne and also Australia, Jewish community, the wider community, and also overseas. I think this is just so important. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So we have someone available, but we need the funding, because it is quite a lot of work, not just to interview each person, each family, but to put it all together, because it takes time. And so that's what we're looking at. So I'm very thankful to the member who stepped up and is helping me as we look for suitable grants. Okay, so this is what I spoke about on Shabbat. Now, I know that there are a lot of stories out there, and that's why I'm really passionate about making sure that our stories are recorded. I know that I've got the book here. I'm just looking for it, The Sephardi Narratives by Maya Bloom, which is excellent. And it has a number of our members were interviewed, and their stories are in that book. But we have also a lot of other members whose stories haven't been recorded. So, we need to get all of those stories as well. So this is a little bit about my dad. I still have my mum's story, my in-laws. There's so much, but I just focused. I could have been there all day otherwise talking. So I just spoke about my dad's family. So my dad's family were middle class. They lived in a good suburb in Cairo that didn't have a name, and it was opposite the main railway station. My grandmother was the eldest of 6 children, so my dad had lots of aunts and uncles. He loved Shabbat because all the family would visit the eldest. That was my grandmother and my grandfather. So sometimes there were up to 25 people in the apartment, and they were very happy times. In 1947, the UN voted for the establishment of a Jewish state, and there was excitement amongst the Jews of Egypt, but also trepidation on how Egypt would respond. 6 months later, on the 15th of May, 1948, and my dad, aged 13, sat with his family close to the radio. They were huddled under blankets so the Arab neighbours wouldn't hear as they listened to Ben Gurion declare the new state to be called Israel. Listening to the broadcast was forbidden, but they did so privately, like many other Jewish families. My dad recited the Shema after Ben Gurion's speech. He said he still gets goosebumps thinking about that historic moment. Egypt didn't expel their 75,000 Jews, but they made them feel very unwelcome. There were pogroms in neighbouring areas, and my dad's family felt really unsafe. After Egypt's loss to Israel in 1948, things finally calmed down till 1952 when the Egyptian army overthrew King Farouk. My dad's family wanted to leave Egypt, but they didn't have papers. They couldn't get visas despite trying. My grandfather had Spanish nationality, but the Spanish government weren't accepting any Jews. In 1954, Egypt enacted the nationalisation law, stripping Jews and wealthy Egyptians of their businesses. And soon after, my uncle, Uncle Eli, which was my dad's brother, was able to migrate to Australia and left Egypt. In 1956, there was the Suez Canal crisis. And for the second time in 8 years, Egypt was at war with Israel. There was a roundup of Jews. Jews were being beaten and losing their jobs. Dad's family were desperate to leave Egypt and desperately applied for visas. But you couldn't just leave the country unless you had an exit visa issued by the Egyptian government. My Uncle Eli was in Australia and was finally able to get his family Australian landing permits. Their Egyptian exit visas were stamped never to return. Now, I've glossed over how they got their papers, but I'm telling you, it was very difficult and very, very stressful. And in addition, they only had 3 days to leave once they got their visas, which meant they had to pack, they had to get to Alexandria, and they also had to find a passage on a ship. Keeping in mind, there was no internet then. Almost everything was left behind. They took 6 bags between the 3 of them. At customs, they had to pay someone to have their jewellery smuggled onto the boat, as all their bags were checked before leaving. And again, they weren't able to take their money with them. Although relieved to be leaving Egypt, my grandmother was sad to leave her family behind, and my grandfather was in shock. He was in his mid-50s, could barely speak any English. How was he going to provide for his family? My dad came to Australia as a young man, fortunately could speak English, French, Italian, Spanish, and Arabic. Being able to speak English really helped him, and he and his brother cared for their parents until they died. And as you know, my in-laws also came from Egypt and had similar experiences. 2 families, Danon and Levy, who came to Australia and brought their cultures here. In Sydney, it was the Danon family that were founding members of the Sydney Sephardi Synagogue. And it was Maurice Levy who saw that synagogue in Sydney, and he wanted it here in Melbourne. It is thanks to him, Vivian Levy and the Cohen family, that is the parents of Abraham Cohen, our treasurer, and grandparents of Lara Cohen, our secretary, and so many other families, that we are able to pray in this beautiful synagogue. They worked hard, they donated, they gave so much to make this synagogue, the beautiful synagogue that we have, a reality. So we may be a minority in a minority here in Melbourne, but our customs, our foods, and the way that we do things are wonderful, diverse, and special. So on this Shabbat, I ask that you all take a moment to reflect on those Jews who were forced from their homes, Some lost all their money and possessions, some were beaten, and some were killed. And today, where there were once thriving Jewish communities, there are now virtually no Jews living in many of those Arab countries. But we are here today, and it's important to continue the legacy of our community. Our synagogue welcomes all. You don't have to be Sephardi to attend our synagogue, and we love that we have a diverse range of people attending. Thank you for listening, and Shabbat Shalom. So that was my speech that I gave on Shabbat, and I thank everyone who warmly welcomed my speech and was so enthusiastic. And as I said, we are looking at recording the stories because it's not just the Jews from Arab lands within our community. They come from many other countries, and we have a large Indian community, and those stories are also important to record. So thank you for watching. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening. Thank you.